The ships came without warning on a Tuesday morning when most of Earth was still having breakfast. Captain Jake Morrison was drinking his coffee on the bridge of the battleship Liberty when the alert started screaming across every screen in the command center. The radar operator, a young woman named Lisa, looked up with wide eyes and said the words that would change everything. "Sir, we have contacts. Hundreds of them. They just appeared out of nowhere." Jake set down his coffee cup and walked to the main display screen. What he saw there made his blood run cold. The alien ships were massive, each one the size of a city, and they were made of something that looked like crystal but moved like metal. They hung in space around Earth like a net, blocking out the stars with their sheer number. Admiral Lisa. Chen was already on the communication channel from Earth Defense Command. Her voice was steady, but Jake could hear the worry underneath. "All ships. This is Admiral Chen. We have an unknown fleet in our space. Do not engage. Repeat, do not engage until we know what we are dealing with." The aliens did not make them wait long. Every television screen on Earth, every computer monitor, every phone display suddenly showed the same image. It was a creature that looked almost human, but not quite right. Its skin was pale blue, and its eyes were too large and too bright. When it spoke, its voice came from everywhere at once. "People of Earth, I am Ambassador Veltar of the Corvani Empire. We speak for the hegemony, the alliance that rules this part of the galaxy. You have grown beyond your world, and now you must choose your place in the greater order." Jake watched the alien's face on the screen and felt something cold settle in his stomach. This was not a first contact scenario from the movies. This creature was not here to make friends. "Your species has shown promise," the alien continued, "but also dangerous independence. We offer you a choice. Submit to hegemony rule and know peace. Accept our guidance and protection. In return, you will dismantle your military forces beyond this system. You will accept our oversight of your government and technology. You will become part of our great alliance." President Catherine Walsh was in the emergency bunker under Washington, surrounded by generals and admirals and scientists. Jake could see her on the secure channel, her face hard as stone. She had been a fighter pilot before she became a politician, and Jake could see that fighter pilot looking out through her eyes now. "And if we refuse?" President Walsh asked, though everyone already knew the answer. The alien's smile was not a pleasant thing to see. "Then you will face the consequences of your choice. We have brought 1,000 ships to demonstrate our commitment to peace. We can bring 1 million if you prefer war." Dr. Alex Turner was watching from his laboratory deep inside Titan's research facility. He had been working on something called Project Blackout for the past 2 years, something so secret that even Jake did not know what it was. Now Alex was getting urgent messages on his secure terminal, orders to speed up his work and prepare for immediate deployment. The alien ambassador continued speaking, and with each word, Jake felt his anger growing. "You have 72 hours to make your decision. Disarm your fleets and accept our rule, or face the full might of the hegemony. We have conquered 1,000 worlds. We have brought peace to countless species. We offer you the same gift." Colonel Nina Torres was in her command bunker on Mars, looking at displays that showed hidden weapon platforms throughout the solar system. Things that looked like mining stations and research posts, but were actually something very different. She had spent 5 years building this network in secret, and now she was getting ready to activate it. The alien's message was ending now. "We do not wish to destroy you," Veltar said, "but we will if you force our hand. Choose wisely, humans of Earth. Choose peace." The transmission ended, and the screens went back to normal. But nothing would ever be normal again. President Walsh was already giving orders. Emergency sessions of Congress and the United Nations. Military commanders called to immediate briefings. Scientists pulled from their projects to work on new ones. The whole planet was about to become a war machine. Jake looked out at the alien. ships hanging in space around Earth like a threat made real. He thought about his daughter back on Earth, about all the children who would grow up in whatever world came next. The aliens wanted humanity to choose between peace and war. Jake smiled grimly and opened a channel to his crew. "All hands, this is the captain. We just got offered a choice between slavery and freedom. I know which one I pick. How about you?" The response from his crew was immediate and unanimous. They chose freedom. 72 hours to decide the future of the human race. Jake already knew what that decision would be. The deadline came and went like a whisper in the dark. President Catherine Walsh stood before the cameras in the White House, her words broadcast to every human settlement from Earth to the outer colonies. Behind her, through the windows, the alien ships hung in the sky like dark clouds waiting to bring the storm. "We have heard your offer," she said, looking directly into the camera that would carry her words to the alien fleet. "We have considered your terms. Our answer is simple. We reject your peace. We reject your protection. We choose to remain free, whatever the cost." Ambassador Veltar appeared on screens across the human fleet within minutes of the president's speech. His alien features showed something that might have been surprise, or maybe it was disappointment. "So be it," he said. "You have chosen your path. Now you will walk it to its end." The first demonstration of alien power came exactly 1 hour later. Luna City's outer defensive ring simply vanished in a flash of brilliant light. 50,000 people died in an instant, turned to vapor by weapons that Earth's scientists could not even begin to understand. The message was clear. This is what happens to those who defy the hegemony. Commander Ryan Blake was in his fighter when the order came through. "All squadrons, this is Admiral Chen. Operation Defiance is now active. Show them what humans do when someone threatens our home." Ryan's squadron was equipped with something new, something that Dr. Alex Turner had been working on in secret for the past 2 years. Quantum phase drives that could slip a ship through dimensions for just a few seconds, long enough to pass through energy shields and armor like they were not even there. "Remember," Ryan told his pilots as they launched from the Liberty, "we only get one shot at this. Make it count." The alien flagship was massive, a crystal cathedral floating in space that dwarfed anything humans had ever built. Its shields flickered like aurora around its hull, and weapon ports glowed with deadly energy. It looked impossible to damage, much less destroy. Ryan led his squadron in what looked like a suicide run straight at the flagship's bow. The alien point defense systems opened fire, filling space with deadly light. 2 of his fighters vanished in balls of fire, but Ryan kept flying straight ahead. Phase drive active in 3, 2, 1 mark. The universe twisted around Ryan's fighter for a heartbeat, and suddenly he was inside the alien ship, flying through corridors filled with creatures that looked like walking nightmares. He could see his target ahead, the ship's power core, a sphere of contained energy that pulsed like a beating heart. "Antimatter charges deployed," Ryan said into his radio, knowing that his words might be the last thing he ever spoke. "See ya, on the other side." The explosion tore through the flagship from the inside out. The great crystal ship came apart like a flower made of light and fire, its destruction visible from Earth itself. The shock wave from its death rippled through the alien fleet, and for the first time in 10,000 years of conquest, the hegemony felt something they had forgotten: fear. Colonel Nina Torres was watching from her command center on Mars when the flagship died. She smiled grimly and gave the order she had been waiting 5 years to give. "All hidden platforms, this is command. You are weapons free. Light them up." Across the solar system, mining stations and research outposts suddenly revealed their true nature. Massive railguns emerged from hidden bays. Missile batteries that had been disguised as asteroid processing equipment came online. Fusion cannons that could crack a moon in half powered up and locked onto their targets. The aliens had come expecting to face a primitive species with chemical rockets and nuclear warheads. Instead, they found themselves caught in a crossfire from weapons they had not even known existed. Ships that had survived 1,000 battles across the galaxy died in the space between heartbeats. Dr. Rachel Stone was deep underground in a laboratory that officially did not exist, putting the finishing touches on humanity's answer to the hegemony's greatest strength. The aliens were connected by something they called the Unity, a shared consciousness that let them coordinate their fleets across vast distances. It made them incredibly efficient and nearly impossible to surprise. It also made them vulnerable, in a way they had never imagined. Rachel's virus was a thing of beauty and terror, a cascade of neural feedback that would turn the Unity against itself. She uploaded it to a communication probe and launched it toward the alien fleet, where it would spread from ship to ship like wildfire through their shared network. The battle lasted 6 hours. When it ended, the alien fleet was scattered and broken, running for the edge of the solar system like wounded animals fleeing from a predator. They left behind the wreckage of 200 ships and the bodies of 1 million aliens who had thought humans would be easy prey. Admiral Lisa Chen stood on the bridge of her flagship and watched the aliens retreat. Her uniform was stained with smoke and her face was grim with the knowledge of what was coming next. This had been just the first round, a skirmish between scouts. The real war was about to begin. "Send a message to the hegemony fleet," she ordered her communications officer. "Tell them that if they want to fight humans, they better bring more ships." The alien response came within hours, broadcast on all frequencies so that every human would hear it. Ambassador Veltar's face was twisted with rage that his species had not felt in millennia. "You have made a grave mistake," he said. "You have killed our people and destroyed our ships. For this crime, you will face the full wrath of the hegemony. We will return with 1,000 fleets. We will burn your worlds and scatter your ashes across the void. You chose war, humans. Now you will learn what war truly means." The transmission ended, leaving humanity alone with the knowledge of what they had done and what was coming. They had drawn first blood, but the hegemony had been conquering worlds when Earth was still cooling from its formation. The real test was yet to come. 6 months after the Battle of Sol, humanity had become something the galaxy had never seen before. The species that had once sent peaceful exploration ships to the stars now built nothing but weapons. Every factory, every shipyard, every research facility had been converted to serve one purpose: preparing for the war that was coming. General Marcus Kane stood in the center of the largest construction project in human history. The asteroid belt had been transformed into a massive industrial complex, with automated factories mining raw materials and assembling warships at a rate that defied belief. Where once there had been empty space and floating rocks, now there were shipyards that stretched for thousands of kilometers. "How many ships do we have operational?" Kane asked his aide, a young officer named Danny Harper, who had been promoted 3 times in the past month as the military expanded beyond all previous limits. 2,000 combat vessels as of this morning, sir," Danny replied, checking his tablet. "Production rate is increasing daily. We should have 5,000 within another month." Kane nodded grimly. It was an impressive number. But intelligence. Reports suggested the hegemony was massing a fleet of over 50,000 ships for their return to human space. Quantity alone would not save them. They needed something else. Captain Danny Harper had been given command of the newest class of human warship, vessels that bore names like Vengeance, Retribution, and Death's Hand. These were not exploration ships or even traditional warships. They were pure weapons, designed with one goal: killing aliens as efficiently as possible. The ships carried no civilians, no scientific equipment, no diplomatic facilities. Their hulls were armored with materials that could survive the death of stars. Their weapons could crack planets. Their crews were volunteers who had signed up knowing they would probably never see Earth again. Danny walked through the corridors of his ship, the Fury, and felt the weight of humanity's new purpose. Every person aboard had lost someone in the first battle. Every face he saw was marked by the same grim determination that had taken hold of the entire species. "Captain," his weapons officer called out, "we're receiving new targeting data from Command. Hegemony supply convoy, 3 systems out. 12 transport ships with minimal escort." "Set course and engage the quantum drive," Danny ordered. "No survivors." The doctrine was simple. Humanity would not wait for the aliens to come to them. They would take the war to the enemy, striking at supply lines, outposts, and isolated fleets wherever they could find them. Every alien ship that died now was one less they would face in the final battle. Dr. Elena Brooks worked in a laboratory that had once studied beneficial viruses for medical research. Now she created plagues designed to spread through alien biology, like fire through dry grass. Her greatest achievement was the neural cascade virus, a weapon that turned the hegemony's greatest strength against them. The aliens shared a collective consciousness that linked every individual across their empire. It made them incredibly coordinated but also incredibly vulnerable. Elena's virus spread through their neural links, causing feedback loops that drove entire populations insane within hours. "The test results are conclusive," Elena reported to General Kane via secure transmission. "The virus is 100% effective against all known hegemony species. Deployment could eliminate entire worlds within days." Kane studied the data and felt something cold settle in his chest. Using biological weapons against civilian populations was crossing a line that humanity had never crossed before. But then he thought about Luna City, about the children who had died in that first demonstration of alien power. "Begin mass production," he ordered. "Load it into every missile we have." Commander Peter Shaw led teams that did not officially exist, carrying out operations that would never appear in any military record. They infiltrated alien worlds using stolen hegemony technology, planting bombs in civilian centers and spreading terror among species that had never known what it meant to be afraid. Peter's latest mission had taken him to Corvin Prime, the homeworld of the species that had delivered humanity's ultimatum. He planted nuclear devices in their capital city's water treatment facilities, their power grids, their schools and hospitals. When the bombs went off, they would kill millions of innocent civilians. Standing in the ruins of an alien nursery where children played games not so different from human children, Peter felt the weight of what humanity was becoming. But he also remembered the faces of human children who would never play again because of what the aliens had done. "This is for Luna City," he whispered as he armed the last device. The Hegemony Council met in emergency session as reports flooded in from across their territory. Worlds that had known peace for thousands of years were burning. Their fleets were being hunted by human ships that appeared without warning, struck without mercy, and vanished before reinforcements could arrive. Ambassador Veltar stood before the assembled representatives of 12 different species, his blue skin pale with something that might have been fear. "They do not fight like any species we have encountered before," he reported. "They show no mercy to civilians. They take no prisoners. They refuse all attempts at communication or negotiation. The elder of the Corvani species, a creature so old that its name had been forgotten, spoke with a voice like grinding stone. In 10,000 years of expansion, we have never faced resistance like this. These humans fight not for territory or resources or political advantage. They fight to ensure that we regret ever finding them." Reports continued to pour in. Human raiders had destroyed the agricultural worlds that fed 3 star systems, causing famine across dozens of planets. Biological weapons had wiped out the entire population of 2 hegemony colonies. Nuclear terrorism had turned the proud capital of the Vectar species into a radioactive wasteland. "They are becoming everything we feared they might become," Veltar continued. "We offered them peace. To prevent this exact outcome, Now we face a species that has embraced total war as a matter of survival. The council chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. The hegemony had conquered 1,000 worlds by offering species a choice: submit or face destruction. They had assumed humans would choose submission when faced with overwhelming force. Instead, humanity had chosen to become the destroyers. Admiral Lisa Chen stood on the bridge of her flagship as it emerged from quantum space near another hegemony outpost. This was her 53rd raid in 6 months, and like all the others, it would end the same way, with fire and death and no survivors to tell the tale. "All ships, this is Admiral Chen," she broadcast to her fleet. "Remember why we are here. Remember Luna City. Remember that they offered us peace on their terms. Now we give them war on ours." The human fleet opened fire, and another piece of the hegemony burned. Across the galaxy, the pattern was being repeated hundreds of times as humanity's war machine ground forward with unstoppable momentum. The aliens had wanted to transform humanity into something they could control. Instead, they had created something far worse: a species with nothing left to lose and the technology to make the entire galaxy pay for their mistake. The real war had not even begun yet. 3 years into the war, Earth itself bore the scars of humanity's defiance. Orbital bombardments had turned entire continents into glass. The oceans boiled with radioactive steam from the fusion weapons that had missed their intended targets and struck the planet instead. Billions of humans had died, but for every human casualty, the aliens had paid 10 times over in blood. Major Susan Clark crouched in the ruins of what had once been New Geneva, watching alien dropships descend through the smoke-filled sky like falling stars. This was the 4th time the hegemony had tried to invade Earth directly, and each time they learned the same lesson. Humans fought harder when they were defending their home. "Remember, no prisoners," Susan told her soldiers as they checked their weapons one final time. "They want to wipe us out, so we return the favor." The alien troops that emerged from the dropships were heavily armored and equipped with energy weapons that could cut through steel like paper. They moved with the coordination of a hive mind, each soldier knowing exactly where every other soldier was at all times. They should have been unstoppable, but they had never faced humans fighting for survival. Susan's soldiers used tactics that violated every rule of civilized warfare. They rigged civilian buildings with explosives, turning hospitals and schools into death traps. They released chemical weapons in crowded areas where alien and human civilians were mixed together. They strapped bombs to children and sent them running toward enemy positions. The aliens retreated within hours, leaving behind hundreds of their dead and the knowledge that conquering Earth would cost them more than they were willing to pay. The humans celebrated their victory even as they buried their own children who had died in the fighting. Admiral Lisa Chen commanded the human expeditionary force from her flagship as it prowled the space between star systems like a pack of wolves, hunting prey. Her fleet had abandoned all pretense of defense 3 years ago. They existed for one purpose: to hunt down alien ships and destroy them wherever they could be found. "Contact bearing 27 Mark IV, her sensor operator reported. "Single hegemony cruiser, no escort." "Intercept course," Lisa ordered. "No survivors." The alien cruiser tried to run when it detected the human fleet, but there was nowhere in the galaxy that was safe anymore. Human ships were faster, their weapons hit harder, and their crews fought with the desperate fury of a species that knew extinction was the only alternative to victory. The battle was over in minutes. The alien ship died in a ball of nuclear fire. Its crew vaporized before they could even send a distress signal. Lisa watched the debris scatter across the void and felt nothing but grim satisfaction. One more enemy ship destroyed, one step closer to making the aliens regret ever finding humanity. In the depths of the Colorado Mountains, Dr. Kevin Ross put the finishing touches on humanity's most terrible weapon. The extinction protocol was a device that could sterilize entire star systems, turning living worlds into dead rocks floating in space. It violated every treaty, every moral code, every principle that humanity had once held sacred. Kevin stared at the device and wondered what his children would think of him if they knew what he had created. But his children were dead, killed in the bombing of Denver 2 years ago. Now he created weapons for the children who might survive if humanity won this war. Testing phase is complete, he reported to President Walsh via secure transmission. The device is ready for deployment. President Walsh sat in her bunker deep beneath the ruins of Washington, surrounded by the generals and admirals who had become humanity's war council. Her hair had gone completely gray in the past 3 years, and her eyes held the hollow look of someone who had seen too much death. "How many worlds could we target?" she asked. "All of them," Kevin replied. "Every hegemony world, every colony, every outpost. We could wipe out their entire civilization in a matter of days." The weight of that power settled over the room like a shroud. Humanity now possessed the ability to commit genocide on a galactic scale. The question was whether they had the will to use it. The answer came in the form of a final alien ultimatum. Ambassador Veltar appeared on screens across human space one last time, his alien features marked by something that might have been desperation. "People of Earth," he said, "you have proven your strength and your determination. The hegemony acknowledges that we underestimated your species. We offer you one final chance for peace." President Walsh listened to the terms with a face like stone. Unconditional surrender. The surviving human population would be relocated to labor camps on distant worlds. Earth would be stripped of all resources and left as a dead monument to the folly of defying the hegemony. "In return," Veltar continued, "we offer you survival. Your species will continue to exist, even if not as you once were. Refuse, and we will deploy the combined fleets of 12 allied species to ensure that no human survives anywhere in the galaxy." The transmission ended, leaving humanity to consider their final choice: slavery or extinction, submission or annihilation. The same choice they had been offered 3 years ago, but now with the full weight of galactic civilization arrayed against them. Commander Jake Morrison, now captain of the most advanced warship in the human fleet, delivered humanity's response. He piloted his fighter personally, carrying a fusion bomb through the alien peace envoy's shields and detonating it inside their flagship. The explosion was visible from Earth itself, a new star that burned for 3 seconds before fading into darkness. The message was clear. Humanity would never surrender. They would fight until every last human was dead, and they would take as many aliens with them as possible. The final battle was coming. The hegemony was massing the largest fleet in galactic history, ships from every member species of their alliance. They came not to conquer, but to exterminate, to ensure that the human threat was ended once and for all. But humanity had spent 3 years preparing for this moment. They had weapons that could crack planets, viruses that could destroy entire populations, and the absolute determination of a species that had nothing left to lose. Most importantly, they had the extinction protocol. If they were going to die, they would take the rest of the galaxy with them. President Walsh gave the order that would seal humanity's fate one way or another. All fleets, return to Earth. All weapons, prepare for final deployment. If this is our last stand, we will make it one that the galaxy remembers forever. The war that had begun with an ultimatum would end with the total destruction of one civilization or the other. There would be no prisoners, no negotiation, no mercy. Humanity had chosen their path 3 years ago when they refused to kneel. Now they would walk that path to its end, whatever the cost. The final armada came like a plague of locusts descending from the heavens. Ships from 12 different species filled the space around Earth until the stars themselves were blotted out by their hulls. The combined fleet of the hegemony stretched from Mercury's orbit to beyond Mars, a wall of weapons and armor that represented the military might of half the galaxy. Captain Ryan Blake stood on the bridge of his new command, the experimental warship Retribution, and watched the alien fleet deploy into attack formation. His ship was one of only 50 vessels equipped with humanity's latest breakthrough: quantum disintegration cannons that could unmake matter at the subatomic level, turning enemy ships into clouds of scattered atoms. All human ships, this is. "Admiral Chen," came the voice over the communication channel. "Today we find out if our defiance was justified. Today we learn whether humanity deserves to survive. Fight well, fight hard, and remember that the entire future of our species depends on what we do in the next few hours." Ryan looked at his crew, men and women who had volunteered for a mission that would almost certainly end in their deaths. They had families on Earth, children who were hiding in deep bunkers while the battle for humanity's survival raged overhead. None of them expected to see those families again. "Weapons charged and ready, Captain," his tactical officer reported. "Then, let's show these aliens what humans do when they threaten our home," Ryan said. "All ships, engage the enemy." The space around Earth erupted into the largest battle in galactic history. Human ships, outnumbered 50-1, threw themselves at the alien fleet with the desperate fury of cornered animals. Fusion missiles lit up the darkness like artificial suns, while energy beams carved through both human and alien hulls with equal ease. The Retribution's quantum cannon fired, and a hegemony battleship simply ceased to exist, its atoms scattered across a light-year of space. But for every alien ship that died, 3 human vessels were blown apart by return fire. The mathematics of the battle were simple and brutal. Humanity could not win through conventional means. Dr. Alex Turner watched the battle from his command bunker on Titan, his hands hovering over the controls for Project Ragnarok. For 4 years, he had worked on this weapon, a network of artificial black holes that could be activated throughout the solar system. The technology was barely understood and completely untested on this scale. It might save humanity, or it might destroy everything, including Earth itself. "Sir, human casualties are approaching 60%, his aide reported. "Admiral Chen is requesting immediate deployment of all strategic weapons." Alex looked at the readings on his screen and made the decision that would determine whether humanity survived the next hour. "Activate Ragnarok Protocol. All stations, begin black hole generation sequence." Across the solar system, hidden stations that had been disguised as research facilities came online. Particle accelerators the size of cities began spinning up to impossible speeds, creating gravitational anomalies that twisted space and time itself. The artificial black holes were tiny, each one no larger than a grain of sand, but their effect on the fabric of reality was devastating. The first black hole opened in the center of the alien fleet's main formation. Ships that had been firing on human targets suddenly found themselves pulled toward a point of infinite gravity. Hull plates buckled and twisted as the alien vessels were stretched like taffy, their crews screaming as they were compressed into nothingness. More black holes opened throughout the battle space, creating a maze of gravitational death traps that claimed both human and alien ships without discrimination. But the humans had known this was coming and had positioned their forces accordingly. The aliens had no warning, no preparation, no defense against weapons that violated the basic laws of physics. Major Danny Harper led his ground forces as alien troops attempted to land on Earth itself, despite the chaos raging in orbit above. The enemy soldiers who made it through the orbital battle were desperate and savage, knowing that failure meant the extinction of their own species as well as humanity's. The fighting in the ruined cities was beyond brutal. Humans used weapons that had been banned since the dawn of civilization. Nerve gas that caused its victims to tear their own flesh apart, biological agents that turned living beings into mindless cannibals, nuclear devices small enough to be carried by individual soldiers. Danny watched his troops deploy radioactive dust in the subways of New York, turning the underground tunnels into death traps that would remain lethal for centuries. Children threw grenades at alien soldiers while their parents fired chemical weapons from the windows of apartment buildings. Humanity had become everything their enemies accused them of being, monsters without mercy or moral restraint. But they were winning. For every human who died, 10 aliens joined them in death. The invading ground forces were being systematically exterminated by an enemy that had learned to fight dirty in ways the galaxy had never imagined. Admiral Lisa Chen stood on the bridge of her flagship as the tide of battle turned in humanity's favor. The artificial black holes had claimed nearly half the alien fleet, and the survivors were beginning to break formation and flee. But Lisa was not content with mere victory. She wanted to ensure that this war could never be repeated. "Signal. All ships," she ordered. "Deploy the extinction protocol against the hegemony homeworld. It's time to teach the galaxy what happens when someone threatens humanity." The weapon that Dr. Kevin Ross had created was loaded into a single missile, a device no larger than a briefcase but capable of destroying an entire star system. The missile's quantum drive allowed it to phase through dimensions, making it impossible to intercept or defend against. Lisa watched the missile disappear into hyperspace, carrying with it the doom of the Corvani homeworld. In 6 hours, when it arrived at its target, 12 billion aliens would die in the space of a few minutes. Their cities would be vaporized, their oceans boiled away, their very planet reduced to cosmic dust. It was genocide on an unimaginable scale, the deliberate extinction of an entire species. But Lisa felt no guilt, no remorse, no hesitation. The aliens had offered humanity the same fate. Now they would discover what it felt like to face extinction. The remaining alien ships were fleeing now, their formations broken and their commanders dead. The great fleet that had come to end humanity forever was scattering to the stellar winds, carrying with them the news that humans were not prey to be hunted, but predators to be feared. Captain Jake Morrison pursued the fleeing aliens in his fighter, hunting down escape pods and destroying them one by one. There would be no survivors from this battle, no witnesses to carry tales of human weakness back to their masters. Every alien who had come to Earth would die here, in the graveyard of their own ambitions. As the last enemy ship exploded in a ball of nuclear fire, Jake received the confirmation signal from the extinction protocol. The Corvani homeworld was dead, its 12 billion inhabitants reduced to atomic particles scattered across the void. The war was over. Humanity had won. But the victory had come at a price that would echo through the ages. They had become the very monsters their enemies had feared they might become, and in doing so, they had ensured their survival. The galaxy would never threaten humanity again. How could it? How do you fight an enemy that would rather destroy entire civilizations than accept defeat? 5 years had passed since Ambassador Veltar delivered his ultimatum to humanity, and the galaxy bore little resemblance to what it had been before. The hegemony was gone, its 12-member species reduced to scattered survivors, who spoke of humans only in whispers filled with terror. Where once there had been a galactic empire spanning thousands of worlds, now there were only empty systems and the silent monuments of extinct civilizations. President Catherine Walsh stood before the remnants of galactic civilization in what had once been the hegemony's capital city. The great crystal towers that had reached toward the sky for millennia were now melted slag, and the air itself still carried the taste of atomic fire. Behind her, human soldiers in black armor stood guard, their weapons trained on the assembled, representatives of the few alien species that had survived humanity's wrath. "You came to our world 5 years ago," Walsh said, her voice carrying across the ruins through speakers that had been salvaged from the wreckage. "You offered us peace on your terms. You told us to submit or face extinction. Today I stand in your capital and deliver our response." The aliens who knelt before her were a pitiful sight, Once proud beings who had ruled entire star systems now wore the gray uniforms of defeated enemies, their eyes hollow with the knowledge of what they had unleashed upon the galaxy. They had thought themselves the apex predators of space, and instead they had awakened something far worse than themselves. "We gave you war on our terms," Walsh continued. "We showed you what happens when someone threatens humanity's children. Look around you. This is the price of your arrogance." Admiral Lisa Chen stood at the edge of the crowd, watching the ceremony, with eyes that had seen too much death to feel either satisfaction or remorse. Her hair was completely white now, aged by years of commanding fleets whose only purpose was destruction. She had overseen the systematic elimination of entire species, turning living worlds into dead rocks floating in the void. "Admiral," her aide whispered, handing her a tablet with the latest reports. "The patrol fleets are reporting all clear in sectors 7 through 12. No alien military activity detected anywhere in the spiral arm." Lisa nodded and tucked the tablet away. Humanity's new patrol fleets ensured that no alien species would ever again possess the strength to threaten Earth. The ships moved through space like sharks through water, hunting down any sign of military buildup or technological advancement that might pose a future threat. Dr. Rachel Stone had established her new research facility in the ruins of the Corvani Science Academy, where she oversaw humanity's accelerated advancement in weapons technology. No longer constrained by ethical considerations about alien life, human science had made leaps that would have taken centuries under normal circumstances. "The new biological weapons are ready for deployment," Rachel reported to the Human Command staff. "We can now target specific genetic markers, eliminating entire species while leaving others untouched. The applications for planetary sterilization are unlimited." The weapons she described would have horrified the humans of 5 years ago, but those humans had lived in a different galaxy, one where mercy was still possible. The new humanity understood that survival required the ability to commit any atrocity, no matter how terrible. Captain Jake Morrison commanded one of the patrol fleets that enforced humanity's new order. His ships moved through former hegemony, space like the hand of an angry god, ensuring that the galaxy remembered the lessons of the war. Any world that showed signs of military development received a visit from Jake's fleet, and those visits always ended the same way. "Contact on long-range sensors," his navigator reported, as they entered another star system. "Looks like the locals are building some kind of orbital defense platform." Jake smiled without humor. "Set course for intercept. Charge all weapons. Time for another object lesson in why you don't threaten humanity." The defense platform was destroyed within minutes, along with the ships that tried to defend it. Jake broadcast humanity's standard message to the planet below. Any further attempts at military development would result in planetary sterilization. The message was always understood. The aliens had learned to fear the sight of human ships more than they feared death itself. Commander Peter Shaw ran the operations that kept the galaxy in line through terror rather than force. His teams moved through alien space like ghosts, striking at targets that might pose future threats. A scientist developing new energy weapons would simply disappear one night. A politician calling for resistance against human rule would be found dead in his office. A military commander planning defense strategies would watch his family die before his eyes. "The Vector are showing signs of organizing resistance," Peter reported during his weekly briefing with command. "Nothing serious yet, just some underground meetings and smuggled weapons. Shall I handle it quietly or make an example?" The answer was always the same: make an example. The galaxy needed to understand that even thinking about resisting humanity would bring swift and terrible retribution. The Vector resistance died in a storm of nuclear fire that turned their 3 major cities into radioactive craters visible from orbit. President Walsh concluded her speech to the assembled alien survivors with words that would echo through whatever remained of galactic history. "You offered us a choice between slavery and freedom. We chose freedom. You offered us a choice between submission and war. We chose war. You offered us a choice between peace on your terms and extinction. We chose to give you extinction instead. The aliens knelt in the ruins of their former capital and listened to their new reality. Humanity now ruled the galaxy through fear and overwhelming force. Any species that showed signs of technological advancement beyond primitive agriculture was eliminated. Any world that attempted to build defenses was sterilized. Any individual who spoke against human rule simply vanished. "This is the new order," Walsh declared. "This is the peace we have built on the ashes of your empire. You wanted to teach us our place in the galaxy. Instead, you learned yours." Dr. Kevin Ross had moved his research to a new facility built in orbit around Earth, where he worked on weapons that could destroy not just worlds but entire star systems. The extinction protocol had been refined and improved, turned from a desperate last resort into a routine tool of galactic policy. "We could eliminate the remaining population centers within a week if necessary," he reported to the Defense Council. "Every major alien world is already targeted. One word from command and they all die." The power to destroy civilizations had become as routine as the power to turn on the lights. Humanity had grown into its role as the galaxy's apex predator, and they wore that role with the casual confidence of a species that had never known defeat. Captain Danny Harper led the occupation forces that governed the surviving alien worlds, ensuring that their populations remained docile and useful. The aliens were allowed to live, but only as servants and laborers in humanity's new empire. Their children were raised to speak human languages and worship human heroes. Their history was rewritten to show humanity as liberators rather than conquerors. "The new generation is coming along nicely," Danny reported to his superiors. "They actually believe we saved them from the tyranny of the hegemony. In another 10 years, they will thank us for conquering them." As humanity looked to the stars from their position of absolute dominance, they carried with them the hard-won knowledge that peace was not something to be negotiated or hoped for. Peace was something to be imposed through superior firepower and the willingness to use it without hesitation. The galaxy had offered humanity a choice between coexistence and extinction. The galaxy had chosen poorly, and now it lived with the consequences of underestimating the species that had refused to kneel. In the end, the aliens had gotten exactly what they had demanded: peace. But it was peace on humanity's terms, enforced at the point of a gun and maintained through the constant threat of annihilation. The galaxy was quiet now, pacified by fear and broken by defeat. And in that silence, humanity continued to grow stronger, preparing for the day when they would encounter new threats beyond the edges of known space. When that day came, those new enemies would learn the same lesson that the hegemony had learned. Threatening humanity's children was the last mistake any species would ever make.